What is up, y'all? Welcome back to episode 71 of That's No Moon Pod. Gonna jump straight into it with the Bad Batch series finale. Spoilers ahead if you haven't watched it yet. And also be talking about the newest episode of X-Men 97 that dropped today as well. There was also some weird news about Chris Hemsworth and Thor Love and Thunder. That'll kind of tie in with what I'm about to say, I guess, with X-Men 97 and just the whole animation episodes of Marvel and Star Wars. But we got to talk about the Bad Batch. Um, I thought this was a great way to end the series. I'm so happy that it was 50 minutes long. It wasn't no 20 something minutes because after last week, I was thinking that there's so much that they still have to conclude and just overall the story arcs. They just needed to do it the way they did. And once I saw that it was 50 minutes, I was like, okay, we have plenty of time here. It's not going to feel rushed. And everything about this episode was tense. You're pretty much on this nonstop ride of the batch trying to infiltrate the facility, get to Omega. You got Omega escaping with all the force sensitive children, her releasing the Zillow Beast, and that pretty much wreaking havoc throughout the whole base and pretty much giving everyone away to get inside the base. Um, you had Echo on his other mission trying to reach Omega as well, um, with the help of Dr. Carr. And again, I was curious to see how well they would be able to tie things up within this 50 minutes, um, because pretty much the whole season, since we knew this was going to be the final one, the whole time you're thinking, who's going to be the one to eat it next? Who's going to go out? Um, which one of the batch is going to die? And I'm glad that they chose to go the route of pretty much, other than Tech, now that we know that Tech is officially gone and he's not one of the secret um, black operative clones that Dr. Hemlock was using to help fight the Batch and fight Omega. Um, None of the Batch dies, and the whole time you're watching this episode, Wrecker is like badly injured. Crosshair, he seems like he doesn't really care much about surviving at this point. He's just pretty much set on finding Omega and helping her escape. And it just seemed like he was willing to do whatever it took, whether that was, him sacrificing himself to help Omega out. And, just the way that the chemistry was between not only just the batch, but with Crosshair and Omega specifically. Um, we really see Omega's character development throughout this whole season just reach this point to where she could pretty much do everything that the batch can do in terms of, coming up with a plan and executing the plan the best of their abilities and pretty much just outsmarting everyone that thinks that they got her under control. Um, Again, I was curious to see how everything would play out. From what I've seen from the comments and just the overall reactions on social media, I think a lot of people really dug this season finale or this series finale, um, because it was a little bit of a swerve. Because again, we were all thinking, who's the one that's gonna have to go out, and the fact that they were able to all, come together, complete the mission, and have that moment between Crosshair and Hunter on the platform, and you got Hemlock and Omega. He's trying to escape with her because Nalase sacrificed herself and destroyed all the data pretty much from all the blood samples that they were taking from all the clones and all the force sensitive kids. So Nalase was able to kind of get her revenge on everything from what they did to Comino, and she was able to pretty much just wreck whatever plans that they had for the Project Necromancer. And I'm glad that she was able to get that cool moment as well. Dr. Carr pretty much got her, um, she got her right doing because she was able to help the kids escape. And we all knew that she wasn't a bad person. She was just doing her job, even though she knew eventually that it was wrong. She was able to come together with the batch and the crew and help the kids escape and take all the kids to the planet or to the island where they hang out for safety. Um, but just the action in this episode, the emotion, the music, again, just the music throughout this whole series has been amazing. Um, you forget while watching the show sometimes that you're actually watching an animation, which all credit goes to the creators and everyone involved, the artist and storyboard and all that. The whole team behind this whole series has been amazing. Um, it seems like they just got Star Wars animation on lock. Um, Everything that they tend to do with Star Wars animated just seems like it has a lot more depth, more integrity for whatever reason. Um, and seeing that final, well, not the final, but pretty much the one of the climatic scenes where Hemlock has Omega and Hunter and Crosshair at a standstill because he has the blaster to Omega's head, but she knows that he can't kill her because he needs her to do whatever further testing that he wants to do. And they have that cool moment to where you see Omega, she pulls out um, that pin or whatever to help escape, and Crosshair has to take the shot. He loses his hand prior fighting the secret operative clones earlier in the episode. So he's got one hand, but we all knew pretty much this moment was going to come eventually to where he's dealing with this thing going on to where he's not the same Crosshair. His hands are always shaking and he doesn't have as steady of a shot as we're used to seeing with him. But we knew eventually he was going to have to take a shot and take it to where we knew that he was going to be able to execute. And Omega does the distraction, stabs Hemlock, and just gives them enough time for Crosshair to take the shot and end up taking him out. And I'm so glad that Hemlock, he played a great villain throughout the series. He wasn't incompetent, he wasn't dumb. He was always seemed like he was one step ahead. Um, and I'm glad that the series kind of got a good enough villain to pose a threat to the batch. And once he finally went out, you felt like, okay, he did what he was supposed to do, and I'm glad that he's no longer there. to cause any harm to any of these kids or any future force sensitive kids out there. Um, but just seeing the moments between the Batch and Omega, it all kind of comes full circle in the end. Um, Seeing them finally complete the mission, pretty much just completely destroy that whole Tantis base. Um, and it was all pretty much done by Omega. And seeing how Omega's character progression just continued to get stronger as the seasons went on. You know, she was just kind of this annoying kid at the beginning, and she was always kind of like a damsel in distress, and the Batch were always trying to, you know, have her tag along, and she was always getting into trouble, but she eventually was able to hold her own and defend for herself and escape on her own and come up with these plans that help save the Batch's lives as well. Um, which is cool. It kind of has like that. She kind of has like that Ahsoka character arc in her, where Ahsoka was kind of this annoying kid at the beginning, but then she eventually grows into her own, and we see eventually how powerful she becomes and how she's able to hold her own and be able to defeat whatever comes her way, which is awesome because again that just speaks to the writers and the creators and the artists of the show that they were able to do such a good job with these characters and make us really feel for them and want to see more of them down the line hopefully. um I know some people were kind of, from what I saw, they're a little bit upset on how they handled Scorch, the public commando trooper, kind of how he went out just like a regular stormtrooper. And I saw some people kind of upset about Rex and some of the other clones that we saw in the series, but at the end of the day, the show is called The Bad Batch, and they were the ones who we all mostly cared about, and it all mattered on how they tied things up with the crew. And they did such a good job with giving us a nice send off, that nice moment with them on the planet. Um, you're seeing that one shot of them sitting under the tree with Batcher. Um, it hits the feels, dude. Like just like what good Star Wars does every single time, or it has like this family element to it, and you're on this crazy ride with them the whole way, and you're thinking one of them or maybe all of them weren't going to make it out alive, but just seeing them all together at the end, and you felt like they won and that they actually completed the mission that they set out on. Um, it was just a great emotional roller coaster from beginning to end. Um, I can't say enough on how well this whole series was executed. Um, and after that one shot of them all sitting under the tree together, you get that pan out. I was wondering if we're gonna kind of get some other extra scene, which we did. Um, I'm not sure on exactly how much time was lapsed from the scene on the island, but we get this scene where we see Omega and Hunter, and Omega looks like she's in her 20s at this point. She's all grown up, and Hunter is all grayed up with the beard, and um, he's looking like Tommy Chong, and um, seems like they're still on the island, but Omega is pretty much on her own. Looks like she's fighting with the rebellion, and she's setting out on her own missions, solo dolo. And Hunter always being that pretty much the father figure to her. Um, still worried about her going out on her own and doing these missions and fighting against the Empire, but he knows that that's who she is, and she's not gonna stop from doing what she feels is right. And just having that moment, that last scene between them two, just seeing them all grown up and seeing where they eventually, you know, set out. And it was just a great send off for both the characters. Now we know that, they're living their lives, doing what they want to do. And Omega just wants to keep fighting against the Empire and help saving as many people as she can. And it could lead into something eventually to where we see, hopefully, more of Omega grown up, and hopefully we get some more cameos from the Bad Batch being older. Because at this point, I'm trying to think of the timeline exactly where. Because again, Omega looks like she's at least 20 something, and Hunter looks like he's probably in his late 40s, early 50s, maybe. Um, so I'm trying to think. It could be taking place during either Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back era. Um, so if they're able to, eventually give us another animated show or even some kind of live action show, that could give us an opportunity to possibly see these characters again down the line. And hopefully they see the reaction that this series got and the love for the characters. And hopefully it would make Lucasfilm want to bring them back and give us more, because um, I hate to see them go. I hate to, for this to be the last time that we get to see these characters on the screen. But I don't think it will be. I think we'll definitely see more of them, and um, hopefully they'll be able to, progress Omega's character even more. Because the whole thing with Asajj Ventress training her, and we all know that Omega is force sensitive in some type of way. She could eventually just become this clone that is strong with the force, but never really becomes a Jedi per se. But she could eventually get trained even more by Asajj down the line, and maybe she is able to kind of be this, again, not this Jedi per se, but just this Force user who's a rebel at heart, and she's kind of able to help the rebellion defeat the Empire down the line. But yeah, I mean, what a great series! What a great season finale! Um, a happy ending, which I think took a lot of people by surprise. Um, but I'm glad they did it this way. I'm not sitting here thinking, I wish someone would have died, because I didn't want anyone to die, and kind of glad that they went that route and gave them all a nice send off, and giving us an opportunity to hopefully see them again in the future. Um, Going into X-Men 97, the latest episode, this series, each episode just keeps getting better. This whole show has been consistent from the beginning. I think we only have like 2 episodes left, if I'm not mistaken. But this one pretty much kicks everything off from where we left off last week with Bastion. Um, he's pretty much just infected. I don't know about all the humans, but pretty much a good majority of them with the whole Sentinel virus, turning all these humans into human Sentinels. Um, and we're getting these pretty much these reunions in this episode. It's a very family heavy episode as well. Um, Cable returning, and he's with his parents pretty much, with Jean and Cyclops, and they're having a fight and come up with all these explanations and find these clues on who Bastion is and what he's setting out to do. um, where we eventually see all these humans turning into sentinels and trying to take out all the mutants pretty much. Um, we got some cool family dynamics again with Cable and Scott. They're like having that, you know, there's a lot of tension between them, obviously. Um, them having to send Nathan out into the future and then him eventually coming back. Um, we got some cool action scenes between Wolverine and Nightcrawler. Them fighting side by side was so cool to see. Um, just seeing Nightcrawler in action was always one of my favorite things from uh, comic books and just the old school X-Men animation. Um, and then just seeing the whole family dynamic between Jean, Cable, and Scott, them fighting together side by side as a family. Um, and then now that we get Magneto coming back, him getting freed from Bastion's lair or whatever, and him doing that whole pretty much worldwide EMP to pretty much help stop the human sentinels from doing any further damage because they pretty much destroy the whole entire Xavier's mansion. And the whole time you're thinking, well, where's Professor X at? He's got to come eventually, right? And sure enough, at the very end of the episode, he returns, which we all knew he would eventually. And him doing the whole mind control trick to where he's pretty much summoning all of his X-Men to him. Um, and it looks like Magneto is going to be helping the X-Men once again and seeing Charles Xavier and Magneto fight together and with the whole X-Men trying to take out Bastion and all the Sentinels and whatever his plan is. Um, it's just leading up to a great season finale. I think there's no doubt that there's going to be a season 2 just by the way this season has been such a hit. Um, but yeah, I just like the way they're doing. Each episode is different in a way. There's different elements to it. And this one had like that cool family dynamic. Um, and just seeing each kind of obstacle gets thrown to the X-Men's way and them trying to overcome it. Um, it just has such a comic book feel to it as well. Just the story arcs. You see the influences from different story arcs from different comic books, and just the way that they're able to mesh it together so well. And nothing feels rushed, even though the episodes are 20 something minutes long as well. Um, just everything seems really fleshed out, and um, this show just continues to get better. Like I said, um, I look forward to it every week. Um, thankfully, we still got a couple more, um, and just the way they're setting things up for the end, I think it's going to be a banger, no doubt. Um, this weekend we get the Tales of the Empire animated series from Star Wars, so um, now that the Bad Batch is over, we'll be able to jump straight into that, and I think that show is going to be a banger as well. And what I kind of wanted to touch on was just how it's crazy how these animated shows have just been some of the most biggest highlights of both Marvel and Star Wars. Um, and for whatever reason, they're not able to have been as consistent with the live action stuff. Um, but they need to take notes on whatever live action series that they do going forward with these properties. Just look at how fleshed out and how just the integrity of these shows, how it plays on screen, and just the reaction from the fans. Because I got no doubt that the Tales of the Empire is going to be a crazy show, just from the time period and from what we've seen from the trailers. Um, these animated shows have just been so consistent and so well done. Um, I just hope that they're able to learn something from these shows and help put whatever effort that they do in the future with the live action stuff, do it with the care that these animated shows have done because they're just knocking it out of a park every single time. And, they just, whatever they got to do, they just got to, execute their live action stuff better or at least try to compete with the animated shows because right now the animation shows are winning and they're winning by a lot. Um, and that kind of goes with what I was going to talk about with this whole Chris Hemsworth Thor story that kind of um, got released yesterday. Um, I'm not sure from what the interview was from exactly, but Chris Hemsworth was talking about Thor: Love and Thunder and how he kind of felt that he didn't execute the character as well as he could have. Um, he pretty much says that um, it was kind of like a mockery of some sort. Um, I'm trying to pull up the quote um, from what exactly he said. Um, he pretty much says that uh, he became a parody of himself, and we all know that Hemsworth he's already said that he's willing to come back as Thor, and for him to come out and say this, it was on Vanity Fair, and for him to come out and say this, feel like he didn't stick the landing, and that he became a parody of himself. Um, really shows that he obviously really cares about this character, and he wants to give the fans what he feels like they deserve. Um, I'm glad he said this because I know a lot of people felt this way about Thor: Love and Thunder. Um, that whole movie just felt like a parody entirely. Um, it was really jokey, even though Ragnarok was as well. Thor Ragnarok had just a lot more heart and integrity, I felt. Um, just everything about Thor Love and Thunder just didn't hit as it should have, um, which is sad because, I mean, they had the talent, obviously. Um, coming off of Ragnarok, you would think that they would be able to come up with some kind of just overall better movie plot. Um, I think Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher was just completely underwhelming, especially on how cool of a character Gore the God Butcher is. If you've read the comics, he's just this ruthless, crazy, powerful villain, and they really just kind of make him into nothing. Um, you never really felt like he was as big of a threat as he should have been, um, because he's super powerful, and it takes like I believe three versions of Thor to be able to defeat him in the comics. Um, and at the end, he's pretty much taken out by a bunch of kids. Um, and just the whole movie in general, there's a lot of things about it just didn't sit well with me and a lot of fans as well. Um, and I think for Chris Hemsworth to come out and say these things, um, again, it speaks about his character and his love for the character. But um, you're not going to hear anything like that come out from Taika Waititi. It seems like he's one of those guys that just kind of, you know, he does what he does, and he feels like, everything is great. And whatever criticisms or, critiques that people may have about, you know, these movies that he does doesn't matter because, he's going to do what he does no matter what. Um, so for Chris Hemsworth to come out and say these things, just makes people love the guy even more and want to see him come back and kind of redeem himself in another Thor movie or some kind of cameo. I'm hoping that we get to see him again uh, in some kind of movie eventually down the line, which I'm sure we will. Um, I'm sure he'll be pushing for it as well. Um, but yeah, just one another reason that these live action movies and shows just haven't been doing it as well as the animation has. Um, yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think about these Chris Hemsworth comments. Um, Let me know what y'all thought of the Bad Batch series finale, X-Men '97. Um, things are going pretty strong right now, and again, I think it's gonna keep continuing on with the Tales of the Empire this weekend on May the 4th, and I'll hop back on here and get my reviews and thoughts on the series. Um, like, comment, subscribe. I'm posting comic books on my IG and Snapchat still. New releases, variant covers. Links will be down in the description. But until next ep, y'all stay safe, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.